Investor Intelligence provides general information only. You should consider seeking independent advice to see how this information relates to your unique circumstances. Please refer to the terms and conditions available at investorintelligence.com.au for more.
Welcome to this week's episode of Investor Intelligence, your weekly podcast on all things investment, hosted by me, Jacob Kearns. Today I have with me a special guest. He's an investment specialist who's helped countless people achieve their goals and is someone who has recently been featured on SBS. Welcome, Steven Quan.
Thank you for having me today, Jacob. Nice to see you.
I spoke with you last week, Steven, and you said something that stuck out to me. You said a lot of people know what steps they need to take in their investing, but they often lack the mindset to achieve success. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, you are very right with that. What are we fighting when we are sitting hundreds of investors over the time, and we found that the investor that we're dealing with, they can be advanced, they can have some property, they even have a plan, clear goals, clear action steps that they need to do. But what actually missing here is having the right mindset. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they might even have a limiting beliefs in what they can achieve in the future. And what do I mean by that is that you like reading books, right, Jacob?
Yes.
Yeah, so that one of the book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, really popular. In there, they have a concept that explain the mindset difference between the poor, the middle class, and the wealthy, how they actually using their money.
Right.
Having the right mindset about money, right? When you look at that, and for the audience, if you have a blank piece of paper in front of you, what I would love you to do is find a pen and write down on the left-hand side of paper, income, the right-hand side, expense, and below that, I want you to write assets, and the other column is liabilities. Okay, so if you think about this as a poor mindset, what we usually do is when they earn an income, with all the need that they might have, all the income will go straight to expense, and the money will out their pocket, and then we start a cycle again.
Right.
With middle class, on the other hand, they earn more income, they earn much more income. And because they earn more income, we call inflated lifestyle at the same time. So what this means, they will have a lot of toys, a lot of cars, a lot of luxury items that they want to do, and usually that's a liability. So what happens is they have an income, they go into the liabilities, and that's after that go to expense, and the money go out. So they've been working really hard to maintain that inflated lifestyle that they want to portray themselves.
Right. So income to liabilities, which goes to expenses.
And then that's out the cycle.
Yeah.
Now, with the rich mindset, how they actually do is when they receive the income, they will delay gratification a little bit. So they have an income, they're putting some of their money into assets, or what it means is they start putting their money to start investing in assets that can grow their wealth in the future. Then when they have that asset that they can putting into buying their toys, their things that they like, the liabilities, and then going out to the expenses. So you can see that that's no wonder a lot of people have been asking why the rich keep richer and the poor get poor.
Right. So the rich are investing in those assets, which essentially pays them money back, which they can then use that income to invest to really buy whatever they want. If they want to buy those toys, they can through that investment return, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And off that, what people sort of forget, I think, is that your house that you live in, it's a liability, right? If you've got a loan on that, the bank owns it, you don't. And you're not earning a return on that. As opposed to if you've got an investment property, you are earning a return on that property. So that's a bit of a distinction there, which I'm sure you've had discussions with people as well, Stephen, in that sort of middle class poor categories. If they're wanting to go and buy a house that they live in, but still want to invest, is that what you're talking about in terms of mindset?
So you actually mentioned that's very interesting thing, and is that usually coming up in the conversation that I have with my members, in the way that property is very interesting assets, right? A very interesting type of asset. So it depends on how you use the property will determine whether that's assets or liabilities.
Okay.
And it's going back to the definition of what assets mean and what liability means.
Yeah.
Where as assets generate income for you and liability will cost you money.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you buy a home or a property and you use that to living in, most of the people will borrow the money to buy that house, right? And most of the time, I can see that people not even buy their dream house. They have to compromise a lot, but the idea of getting a house is, I would say, it's like Australian dream, isn't it? Like everyone wants to have their own house. But then they forgot that when they borrow the money from the bank, they are the only one who service that loan, right? So that's cost them money. The council rates, the outgoings also cost them money. And because the outgoings there for the purpose of personal use, and again, I'm not a tax accountant here, but for general knowledge is that that's not tax deductible.
Yeah.
Right? And when you're thinking about property as investments, then that is where you can take some of tax advantages, but also you invest in something that grow in value in the future, generate rental income, which that's not costing you money.
Yeah.
So you also have another source of income is from the tax advantage that the government giving to our average property investor.
Yeah.
And then you also have your money to contribute. It depends on the cash flow position of that property. So you essentially you have between 2 to 3 sources helping you to hold an investment property rather than just by yourself when you buy a home to living in.
Yeah, that makes sense. So is that a lot of the conversations that you're having around that delayed gratification? And if people do want to set themselves up for a great future and a good retirement, then it's sort of invest in those assets first that are going to appreciate in value, earn your return, and then buy the toys later.
Absolutely. So that's the one of the things that the rich, they do quite differently.
Yeah.
And they always have the mindset that if I earn an income, how can I maximize the money that I have available now to me, enable for me to be comfortable in the future or to achieve the goals. It's also getting back to what end game goals that you want to achieve.
Yeah. And another thing we've spoken about is the importance of time. And we often advocate for a conservative, slow and steady, wins a race approach. But what are the risks of procrastinating and putting off your investing?
Jacob, you just actually mentioned the right word there, procrastinating. Procrastinating is a killer when you're talking about investing, right? No matter what asset class you're about to investing in, you always have a long-term outlook. Mm-hmm. And when we say long-term, meaning the time will do most of the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of people talking about prediction, a lot of people talking about trying to time the market, try to do all the things that they can do, enable for them to have a better future.
Yeah.
But one of the things that they forgot is that time will help you to reduce your risk. When people start thinking about investing, they will come up with a lot of different excuses. Oh, the market is not right now, it's too competitive. Oh, wow, the interest rate is so high.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this. Oh no, you know what? I'm too busy, right? So the thing is when I raise that, because that's a lot of excuses that I've been hearing over time from all different investors, right? They know that important for them to invest and important for them to have a better future, but because a lot of excuses, maybe sometimes that they are the only person getting in the way of themselves to have a better future. And what I mean by that also is because of they giving some what I excuse my French is bullshit excuses to stopping them moving forward. And what I've been seeing that hearing a lot of stories, especially for people that at a later stage of their life, they usually mention to me that, you know what, in the early 20, I will start thinking about investing, right? And I have come up all the excuses to stop me making the decision. And when I get into the 30, I'm still okay. I'm still on the money. I'm still good health. And when they life getting on and this never become their priorities, then they simply going to the late 40, 50, and they realize that they don't have many more working years, and they start caring about their future. And you know what? At that stage, most of people start looking for a silver bullet. Or they're looking for, get rich quick schemes to get into those high risk and high return. But that's where a lot of bad news and negative news talking about people losing money when they talk about investing and not only just property, anything, any other asset class that I can see. But that because they forgot TAM can be your friend and can be the enemy when coming to the investing. So it depends on how do they value their TAM and do they know to use their TAM wisely. That can be their friend when they come into investing.
Yeah, and you are right. I think it's so easy to put off your investing, and it can be scary sometimes when you see articles in the news and interest rates are rising and the median property price might be coming down, right? But what people often forget or don't understand is, as we were discussing before we started, is there's markets all over the place in Australia. This is also something we've spoken about many times in Australia, and it goes into the property cycle, right? Each market is at a different stage on the property clock, and there's always opportunities because there's always varying amounts of demand.
Well, Jacob, what we just mentioned there, and in property, you just nailed it there. There's a term called property cycle. And property cycle, it just simply means that in property, there will be up and down, and there will be period that will be flatter, and for them to complete one cycle, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty. And one of the things that I really like about Australian property market is that every market, every stage, they have its own cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made it even more interesting. Every different cities and suburbs, they all own its own cycle. And not only that, different property types also have its own cycle as well. And the thing is, when you talk about the news, they always generalize into, Melbourne market or city market going down and going up.
Yeah.
But they forgot about the narrow about, what suburb they're talking about, what type of property that in that suburb they are talking about, right?
Yeah.
Even in my years of experience in real estate, I can say that a property in the same street, they perform differently.
Right.
Right. So essentially, if we try to tame the market, right? If we try to tame the market, there will be at least hundreds of thousands suburbs and property type and cycles that they need to analyze.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing people forget as well. By the time you've done all that analysis, what they maybe find themselves, the market already moved. And that may be like, taking 2 or 3 years down the track when they're starting. And I mentioned that earlier, TAM can be your friend and can be your enemy.
Yeah.
Right? So when you look at from that perspective, what the advocate here about investing is be conservative and have a right plan in place so you can be in the market as long as you can, because we know that, and based on the history, Australian property market have been very resilient no matter what global financial crisis that been hitting them.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's also conclude one of my perspective is that from the perspective between TAM and property cycles, the right time to invest is when you are ready.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you make sure that you are ready financially, educationally, and emotionally, you can then have different cycle there enable for you to try to get into the market.
Yeah.
And so that also highlight an usual saying from us is that TAM in the market is not as important as TAM in the market.
Yeah.
Here at the Property Mentors, we have decades of experience investing in property. We know what to look for and what kind of impact it can have on your portfolio. We have access to brokers, accountants, and property managers to make sure your portfolio performs. Visit thepropertymentors.com.au to learn more.
I guess what we're talking about in regards to the property cycle applies to the economy as a whole, right? There's always going to be ups and downs due to whatever reason, but at the end of the day, if you buy the right asset, if it's property or anything, and hold on to it for a long time, that is going to outweigh the variance. And if you have a long-term perspective, then you're going to mitigate the risk that you're taking if you wait and hesitate and try to time the market.
Yeah, and also just adding on that note as well, Jacob, you just remind me one of the things that's very important. And when usually people coming to us and they ask, oh, so what is the TAM? What cycle are we looking at, right? And where the hotspot and how you can do the prediction of the suburb going to be grow next year or 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And this is the concept of the property cycle there is there because to indicate you that if you be able to hold that property for one cycle or 2 cycles, that's where the real wealth in property. So that's
Right.
the long term. And when the concept of cycle to indicate is that because no one can predict what happened in the future, right? This property or this suburb going to be grow next year or the second year. It can be quiet for 5 years, but then it hit in the year 6 and it can be boom 200%. But averaging out, it can be between 6 to or 8.2% as what Australians property market have been performing in the last 90 years.
Yeah.
But what we also know is that if you can hold a property as long as you can or going through 1 or 2 cycle and you can complete them, then the property generally will going up in value after they complete that cycle.
Yeah. So that 8% average annual return in property, that's not to say that every property is going to go up by 8%. Of course, you have to do your research and understand all the factors such as population growth and where the infrastructure is being spent. But once you do that research, Stephen, you're in a good position to be able to hold on to those properties long term, and you sort of remove that emotion because you've done the research and you can weather those storms if there are any storms.
Well, Jacob, you're actually right with that. And don't get me wrong, that the property cycle and doing the right research are so important and so critical when you're coming to select the right property. But that's why we also emphasize of having the right knowledge before you get into the market is understand all the key fundamentals of property. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by key fundamentals, so there will be 100 things when you're coming to finding the right investment property that you consider. But over the years, when we look how the property performing and having investment properties for ourselves, we saw that there will be a few key fundamentals that we can pay attention to. And if those line up, then normally whatever little criteria that you have for yourself, it usually will be fall under that.
Okay, so when you mention the fundamentals, what specifically do you mean?
Well, the fundamental here is going back to a very basic economic class. If anyone in our audience actually done that, is talking about the microeconomics and talking about the supply and demand, right? And we also consider about the macroeconomics, where what the influences into the property market. We can talk about what the political, what the government doing, what is the bank been doing. All of those things will detect the supply and demand within the property market itself. Yep. And the reason why I'm talking property today because that's what I've been doing, and I can't advocate for any other asset class, right? But when you're going back to our topic and the supply and demand here is we're looking at number one, where's the money? Mm-hmm. Simple as that. The demand in this sort of location, where the population moving to, where the population grow, indicate in what state, in what city, in what location, in what suburbs, right? Because we need people moving there. And then you also understand why more people. Because if you look at population alone, it doesn't make sense to indicate that grow in the area. But you need to start thinking about why people moving to that area, what attract them. Is there any job opportunities? Is there any amenity? Is there business hub? All of those things would stimulate the activities in that suburbs.
Yeah.
Right? And also other factor that you can also consider the demographic in that market. You need to also understand as an investor what your competitions look like in that pocket, the ratio of owner occupier and the ratio of investor in this particular location.
Okay.
Because you, in the short term, you still have the property on the market looking for a tenant. You don't want fees, competition.
If there's more investors,
If
is that what you're saying?
If there are more investors in the market, that can be very competitive.
So you're saying that you don't want to enter a market where there's a lot of investors?
Correct.
I would have thought the opposite. If there's more investors, wouldn't that mean there's more demand?
So what I mean is when you look at that location and if you're looking at the ratio between owner-occupiers comparing to the investor,
okay,
and if there are more investor in that location, you tend to compete your own rental listing with other people or other investor, and that's also make your renter pool smaller. So and it's going back to the law of supply and demand again. If the renter have more choices, would they pay higher rent to you?
No.
So it's actually applied to a long-term perspective where you have the suburbs that attract owner-occupy, where the family moving there, where a lot of activities, family-oriented suburb, you have more amenities, swimming pools, facilities, all of that come into play, and people have more emotional attachment to that. And as investor, one of the key things that we are working here is to remove our emotion when we make a decision. Why is that? Because we want to make sure as an investor, we focus our decision on numbers, making a business decision to understand that we not go over our capacity.
Yeah.
Right? But then if you think about this, Jacob, if we want to have a property on the market today, right? We're about to assess the portfolio, right? And let's say Victoria, we love auction, right? You put a property on the market and you have a really good agent running the campaign and you come into auction day, right? An agent telling you, Jacob, according to our feedback, we have 2 or 3 bidders and 3 of them actually investor. Now, in your belief, do you think this property will be sold way above the reserve price?
Well, if there's more bidders, I would imagine it would.
But remember my question, the bidders
Are
only
investors.
investor.
Yeah.
And what investor are we doing? Focusing on the numbers. So we have the budget that sets so clear. We cannot go over, because when we go over, that jeopardizes all the calculation that we made.
Yeah. So you've already done the numbers on that specific price.
Correct.
So you don't want to go over that.
And also you do the research as well. You understand what the median price for similar property in that location. For you to do the fair price. As an investor, you want to buy the fair price.
Yeah.
Right? But as a seller, you want to get as much price as you can.
Yeah.
Now, between the homeowner and the investor, who do you think will pay more?
Well, probably the homeowner if they really like the property. If they want to live there, if they've got kids, close to schools, close to jobs, I would imagine, yes, you'd get a higher price if the homeowner was buying.
And you just mentioned a critical key information there is they like the area.
Yeah.
Because their kids going to school the area, because their family around the area, they have emotional attachment into the market. So if they identify the property that according to their dream home and in the right location, do you think they will pay more?
Yeah.
There we go. So that's a way to also stimulate the potential capital growth in the area.
Yeah. So I've spoken about time a lot and having the right mindset. What would you say to someone if they're trying to maximize their time in the market? What do they need to consider?
That is the right question there, Jacob. So one of the pillars that we're working with our members here called financial readiness. And financial readiness is not just simply about, going to the bank or talk to a mortgage broker and get the borrow capacity and look at your serviceability. It's actually go a deeper level. I'm talking about under the iceberg here. I'm talking about whether you actually understand your personal cash flow.
Okay.
You also, whether you actually track every single expenses and have the budget in place in order for you to ride through the storm.
Mm-hmm.
And also identify your ability to invest, right? Normal investor, they simply get the borrow capacity from the bank. They're excited, they go to the auction or they go to open room for inspection. They talk to real estate agents and they ask, is that the right investment? And they simply just make a decision purchase without doing all the diligence regarding to the cash flow, the cost of the property, how that fit into their personal tax position, and what's the real cash flow after that. So as an investor, before you getting out there and buy another property or buying your first property, it's very critical for you to understand and improve your financial readiness. Understand all the assets. Do you even know your total assets? Do you even know total liability? Or do you even know how to calculate your net worth?
Right.
Right? That's in the foundation when we're talking about the financial readiness. Okay?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Why you understand your personal cash flow? Why you understand your own balance sheet? You will using this time wisely to learn about the right relevant information to your investment stage. Mm-hmm. Right? The critical here is relevant information because there are a wealth of information available online, as you know. But a lot of people can feel because they hear one opinion and then they join another property forum, another people have another opinion without understanding their situation fully. So as investors, sometimes they confuse, and because they confuse with information, they can also procrastinating as well.
Yeah.
Right? And that also push back their investment journey.
Yeah.
And so financial readiness is what we are focusing on to build that foundation before they're going out and looking for the first or the next investment property.
Yeah.
Do you have a question about investing that you'd like answered? Each month, we take questions from our listeners and put them to our resident expert, Luke Harris. With more than 2 decades of residential and commercial investment experience under his belt, Luke has seen the best and the worst of the property market. Have a burning question you want answered on an upcoming episode? Visit investorintelligence.com.au/questions and ask us today.
So while you do want to maximize your time in the market, you also want to make sure you're financially ready, you understand your assets, you understand your liabilities, and you're doing the cash flow before you even think about investing. And before you even buy that property, you should already have done all your numbers and understanding how that property is going to impact your portfolio and your future, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the same time, people invest in property obviously because the capital grow, because of the equity that they can be able to generate in the long term.
Yeah.
But a lot of people actually have a high side into the cash flow in the short term, right? And cash flow is king when you talk about investing and carry such a big investment asset class in your portfolio. And without understanding your personal cash flow, how would you be able to hold a property?
Yeah.
And then so that this means as an investor, you also either paying some tools to use to help you to project that cash flow, or you can do your own calculation. I'm sure that there will be a lot of professional tools out there, especially one of the tools that we have here, the property mentor called Olga Investor.
Yeah.
That's helping our investor to project the cash flow position, not only just the property, but also the overall, or what I call a real cash flow when you hold that investment property. And so our members, before they make decision, they understand what they're about to get into. They understand what cash flow they're looking for. And the interesting thing here is don't forecast for the best scenario.
Yeah.
Forecast for the worst scenario.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's worst scenario. You cannot go down. You have to go up. But we prepare for the worst case scenario, because when you're comfortable with the worst case scenario, you understand your personal cash flow and you're comfortable with that. What is meaning anything above that is a bonus.
Yeah.
So you prepare for at least the weather storm, right? Usually I have a discussion with my members, and I usually mention that although when you project a high interest rate, right, and you go through the broker, you go through the bank lender, and they already going through the stress test with you to ensure that that's sort of your borrowing capacity, your purchase price.
Yep.
But as investor, we even go even more extreme. We say, how about we put it up a little bit more and see whether we actually even more comfortable. So you already have the bank to do that stress test for you, and the investor will even do another layer. And if you're comfortable with that, that's where you can make an informed decision.
Yeah, and I think that really helps the investor at the end of the day remove some of the emotion that they would have investing, because they understand they've done the numbers on the absolute worst case scenario. So if things don't quite go to plan, then you can still be comfortable because you know that property is still going to get you to your goals. And I guess that brings us to another really important thing that sort of wraps all this up. In order to understand your cash flow and where you want to go, you need to know where you want to go. You need to understand your goals and work backwards.
Yes, correct. That's what the right way to say there. Jacob, and as the property mentor here, we love to use analogies, and what we're using analogy here is essentially helping you to build a roadmap, or you can actually do yourself and build your own roadmap from where you are, what we call point A, to where you want to achieve, what we call point B. And the first step is to looking at your point B, what is it that you ultimately want to achieve? Not about 5 years, not about 10 years, but what ultimately you want to achieve. What's your ideal lifestyle? Because not many people get into property because retirement. But also, the interesting thing is everyone has different definition of retirement.
Yeah.
Right? Retirement doesn't mean that you stop working. Right? People maybe love their work, but they want to have that security.
Yeah.
And that's why they get into the investment there. What you try to ultimately achieve, that's a key question. And when you understand that, and you need to understand how you can make that dream realistic, have a clear measurement, have a clear clarity around your dream. How much do you need? When do you need that by? Right? Once you've done that point B, then you're going back to your point A, where you are, and have a honest, personal auditing about your current situation. And what I mean, sometimes we have 14 questions here that we usually have our members answer these questions, and they are very confronting questions.
Right.
So we have an honest look about realistically, let's be real, let's get real about our situation, where we are financially, where we are with our knowledge in property, where we are in terms of our mindset, or do we have any limiting beliefs, any fears that we need to overcome? How do we use our time at the moment? Because that's critical. Everyone keeps saying they're busy, but funny enough, all the billionaires and millionaires, they all have 24 hours like us. So everyone, and I believe the fairest things in the world is time. Everyone have the same time, but depends on how we use our time is critical. So that's the thing that we need to analyze that as well. And we're also asking, are you happy with your lifestyle now? If you're not, what else? If you are, do you want to maintain, right? And then we identify what's in the gap that property can help them to bridge.
Right.
And so then you can build a plan that can be break down to 2 or 5 years, right? Because the thing is that when you talk about investing, 1 year is maybe too short for you to achieve or to see some of the result. But 2 and a 5 year time will help you and allow you to do exciting things about investing. One other thing that I need to keep in mind here also is that when you look at 1 year, it's a little bit too short and a little bit too compressed and a bit too straight if you try to achieve a lot of things in your investment journey. But 2 and a 5 year will allow you to have enough time for you to plan properly, because what we find over the years, the act of buying a property is only the last piece of puzzle that we need to fill in. The hardest part is what the plan we need to do to be ready up into the state that you can be able to buy property. That's the hardest part.
And as you mentioned before, getting that plan ready, that will get you to your point B.
To your point B, correct. And then you have the right expert around you to validate all different aspects of your plan to ensure that it's a realistic and it's a measurable. And you know what? One last critical thing to make the plan also become reality is you as the investor. At the end of the day, you can have all of the plan, the support from your team of experts, as well as the knowledge and all of those things. But if you are procrastinating of making a clear action or making a big step toward your future, and this is where we're asking our members as well with the point B is, yes, that's what you ultimately want to achieve, but why is it important for you to achieve that goal or to achieve that dream?
Yeah.
The reason why we're asking that question is not for us, it's for you as an investor. Because if you don't even know what drives you, what excites you, then how would you prepare yourself every single day to make the right action, to stop procrastinating and move to the things that you set for yourself that you to achieve?
Yeah.
Right? And when I say this, sometimes people say, oh, it's easier than say. I agree. You know, if things come too easy, then everyone can do it. And the difference between success and failure is a line between how driven and how hardworking, how dedicated you are to what you're planning and make clear action. And if you find yourself that you need a little bit push, someone there to help you and give you that support and be there genuinely to help you to build your future wealth, you can find accountability partner.
Yep.
Right? That can be your friend, your family, your best friend, your best work colleague. If you're comfortable to share that with your colleague about your personal journey. Have someone there to keep you accountable, share your dream, share your action step, and have them there to help you keep you accountable moving forward to your goal. And of course, that's one a lot of people using us, because we here as a professional mentor is to help them to keep them accountable to achieve what the plan that we help them together with their team to build up this plan. We spend a lot of time and make sure that they make a clear action step. And sometimes we can ask some confronting questions, but it's just simply because we do care about their future plan. We want to see our member to succeed.
That's great, Stephen. You covered a lot of important stuff. And I think, as you mentioned, the most important thing always comes down to the investor and getting their mindset ready and making sure, as you said, they've got all their ducks lined up, they've got the team, hopefully they've got someone to keep them accountable, and they're excited about the journey and they know what they want to achieve, and they have hopefully come up with a plan to get there.
Absolutely, Jacob. I'm privileged enough to work with a lot of great members that I can see their journey change. I can see their motivation, their excitement change completely. From when they first started with me to where they are now. They have more property into their portfolio and they even have better lifestyle. Can you believe that? That's an amazing feeling to see someone that can make a clear action step toward their future plan and they still be able to enjoy their life. That's rewarded to me.
No, that is amazing, Steven. With that, thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking to you. And final questions I have for you, Steven, is what is your favorite book?
Okay, so I want to share this a little funny story about myself, Jacob. I didn't like books when I little. I hate reading books. But over the years, when I start my journey and going through my own development journey, books become my friends. So I love reading books and I actually have different books in different subjects from personal and professional development.
Okay.
So regarding to the topic today that we discuss about finance and about investing and all of those related to financial freedom, one of the book, a very popular book, I'm sure everyone read that, a Rich Dad, Poor Dad. On the personal side, I also read the book with the title name Start With Why.
Okay, yeah, Simon Sinek, right?
Simon Sinek, yeah, that's a good one. And also, I've been looking at my favorite, they called Let's Get Real.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that one.
That one, yeah. That's very, very insightful about how to be ready for your investment journey.
Let's Get Real by Luke Harris. And another good one by the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the first book that I ever read, which was Cash Flow Quadrant, which ties into what we discussed at the start of this episode. All great books. The last question I have is, Steven, what are you excited about for the future?
What's exciting about my future is a lot of things, Jacob, but what's really critical for me in the journey that not only just helping my members, but also helping myself is that we have opportunity to create our own life. You know, our future life. And with that meaning, we have a clear action step and a clear plan of what we need to do. And I'm fortunate enough also surround myself with the right team of experts to help me on the journey of also achieve my own dreams.
That's amazing, Steven. Well, thank you again. It's been great talking with you. And if anyone wants to get in contact with you and the team at the Property Mentors, I'll be sure to include a link in the show notes. Thanks, Steven.
Well, thanks, Jacob. Great to talk to you as always, and looking for the next one.
Cool.
If you found this episode or any of our episodes helpful, please make sure to share and leave a rating to help us reach more people on their investing journeys. And of course, subscribe to be notified when new episodes drop. Make sure to follow the podcast on Instagram at Investor Intelligence Podcast. You can find links to our other socials in the show notes, including a link to the Property Mentors weekly blog. If you're ready to get your property portfolio in shape for financial freedom, check out Luke's latest book, Property Fit. You can get yourself a copy at www.propertyfitbook.com.au.